Hey, what's up again, everybody? It's Robert184. 2Rs2Bs Gundam Reviews.net. And anyway, it's episode 46, Sunday night, and it's actually the right Sunday night as it's just aired. And it's time to take a look as we're approaching the final climax, which means you're going to have both sides face off between the Earth forces and the Vegans from Mars. And let's get right to it with lots of characters, lots of mobile suits, and lots of cool scenes. And you know that they're only going to get cooler as the show progresses towards its ultimate conclusion. In the episode itself, there were a lot of characters and their MSs that were touched on. Nonetheless, in terms of characters who had at least a moment as we progress towards their ultimate destinies, still, never get tired of seeing Albright Lorraine. And I think the voice actor for Al Greyes could do a better job of reading a phone book than even Alan Rickman, as we got to see both his political and military side, and not to mention the odd shocked face when things didn't go quite to plan. Our need for more Clanch is about to be quenched next week, unless you're talking about Clanch Custom, but in terms of characters, Sarek certainly has been taking a shining to Captain Moe, and certainly progressing. She's also progressing. We got to see some good moments from her, including thrusting the hands towards the camera, which actually shows that she is becoming a good captain and knows what to do. But we got to see Sarek still tell her to be true to who she is. And just a few scenes later, had a moment with Kyo where he was giving him the verbal smackdown that he needed. Certainly not Bright style, but basically saying when you're out on the battlefield, you have to be able to defeat your enemies, not necessarily to kill, but instead to protect the people that you know and love here on the Diva, including your girlfriend Wendy, who you haven't spent a lot of time with over the last little while. These are the kinds of people, that's why you fight. Flam also got to have her good moments with the leader of the forces, Zeehart Galette. However, at the end, when they had a moment and almost a chance to kiss, or so it would seem, Zeehart said those magical words that anybody wants to hear: "You are my favorite subordinate." So Flam went out, but nonetheless, when push came to shove, she was out there at his side and actually using the Flam Farsha quite well. And you got to see where this relationship is going to end up at the end. And overall, it was a great week just in terms of the Vegan characters as they were getting all their ducks in line. We already saw Flam, but we got to see Dean show up at the end of the episode. Can't wait to see him head out. And Aliel Sarshaz, or Falk Okram, it seems to be his name. He who has a very poor red beard. We also got to see a lot more Xanard, and that's the kind of thing that you know you want to see, because there's nothing that does in the bad guys in Gundams, whether it's Zeon or anybody after that, like infighting amongst the factions led by the various generals. But for Character of the Week, you can talk about the good guys in Flit, Asum, and Kyo all you want, but for me, the one that stood out the most in this episode was not Full Frontal, no, but instead Zeehart Galette, who seems to really be taking on the role of Char Aznable, including the longer hair, the masklessness, and the political speeches, there when he needs them to rally the troops and rally them, and rally not only the troops but the civilians, and also to head out there in a mobile suit. It's not going to be a Red Sazabi or a Nightingale or anything like that. Instead, it's the Legolas, which is certainly going to help it sell if they keep putting that out, especially in Master Grade form. Nonetheless, I think he's really stepping into the role of the head villain and, of course, main antagonist very well, and I can't wait to see his character arc towards the end. In terms of Mobile Suit of the Week, I can't give justice here to all of the mobile suits that had their moments, however small, from the Dorado to the Danazines to the Adele Mark IIs, with the cannons up on their shoulders, but there were a whole bunch of debuts, including some color variations, which is a good thing since Bandai doesn't seem to be wanting to put out too many high-grade molds. There's some very obvious holes missing in this lineup so far. Nonetheless, we're getting recolors, which means if Bandai's not going to do it either through their premium online services, you can, and the biggest standout for me had to be the yellow Giraga out there. That's such a great mobile suit, and just because Zeehart has moved on from it, it's good to see that this great MS design is not forgotten. You'd hope that we'll also see the Zedora somewhere too. And speaking of mobile suits that are omitted from the high-grade line so far, it was great to see Dean reappear, and it was great to see him not in a grunt suit like a Dorado or a Danazine, but instead, Kyo's not just going to be cutting through him on the battlefield and realize at the last moment it was his friend from Mars, but instead he's setting out in a suit that's actually got some firepower in the form of the Kronos, and perhaps that explains why it hasn't been released yet. Would have liked to see it with a color variation on it though, just to differentiate it from Diesel, but that's the kind of thing again that you could do yourself, whether you're painting the AGs or a hopeful HG in the future. But how about for Mobile Suits of the Week? Everybody had their moment, and I think this is the first time that I've called a tie since I switched the format of these anime reviews. But I'm going to call it a three-way split here between the Fawn Farsha, the Age FX, even with it's got its burst mode and the Legolas, whether he used the burst mode or not, nonetheless, seeing these three out there in full power, it was great to see the Fanfarsha use its wands and its Nobel ribbons in a great different way. We also got to see Zehart get angry and put all these gold rings top and bottom around him, which is a very cool effect. Can't wait to see that in Gundam vs. Gundam. Never mind those yellow balls that he was able to turn into, which was perfect to fight against Kyo in his glowing green ball. He's got more power at his disposal. He doesn't want to use it because he's here to protect and not to kill. Nonetheless, seeing these three just absolutely blast each other was a great climax, set up even more so by the surprise appearance of, well, who at the end? You'll find out in Scene of the Week, but great MSs all around. And again, Fanfarsha, that would be great, but we've got the repaint possibilities at least. For the best scenes of the episode, well, it looked like the whole start was just that one. There was no one particular scene that I think stood out in terms of they were just doing a little catch-up on every single character so that we got to see where they all stood, both within their military organization and the personal relationships, whether it's between Zehart and Flam, or Sarek and the captain, Obright and what he's up to, Algreus and how he's feeling. I like that whole setup, and even though we got a ton of character development at the beginning, we also got the payoff in terms of the action at the end. And I'm keeping these guys out because it's the hallmark of every Gundam series at the end, not in the last episode. Generally, if they do things right, it's sort of surprising that they did it as early as episode 46. Nonetheless, we got the name and the mobile suit of every single grunt or pilot, for the ones that matter on the Diva anyway, as they all debuted out to battle, and it's just great to see, and it puts a spine tingle down. I think everybody's back in Gundam when they do that, whether it was Cedar 00, because you know that some of these characters are probably not going to make it back, which makes it all the more cool that they remind you of their name one more time. And I already mentioned earlier in this episode how cool it was to see Captain Moe thrust her hand towards the screen, showing again that she's ready to be the captain. And at the same time on the Vegan side, instead, they had a great plan set up where they had a dummy ship in the middle. It was shooting sporadically. We got to see one of the, well, not one of the grunts, but one of the characters, Jonathan, I think, one of the lesser ones from the Diva out there recognizing that something was up. Flit figured it out a little bit too late, and we got to see some great reactions from the faces, or on the faces of both Algreus and Flit at the end. And why? Because Zehart, instead of thrusting his hand towards the screen, just had to say one simple word, and Alial Sarsha's He of the Poor Red Beard, Falk Okrand, fired the giant laser, which is always great to see. The word Yade, or do it, it was just perfect, and just showed again how Sharish Zehart seems to have become towards the end of this series. But for the best scene of the week for me, it was a great battle between these three MSs, as I said earlier. But in the end, somebody had to come and break it up because I've got a few more episodes that they've got to drag out this fight. And who was it going to be? Was it going to be Assam swooping in with the Dark Hound to save his son, Flit coming out in a mobile suit, or the pirate ship under Assam's control? No, it wasn't. It was the classic betrayal, as we got to see Xanard, who had been asked previously to lend his power and be the left hand or the right hand or whatever it was, for Zehart by Ezelkant, and instead he decided that he's going to be the one, obviously, who wants to do things right. In the grandest tradition of all of Gundam, the bad guys could win. They've got the mobile suits, they've got the mono eyes, they've got 3 times the speed and the power and the pink. Nonetheless, they always fight amongst themselves, and whether it's Dazzle or the Zabbies or anybody, it's great to see Xanard come in and wreck things for Zehart. So you still sort of keep him on side, hoping that he's going to become the protagonist, and you can't wait to see how this Glemmy Toto Haman Karn and thing is going to play out, not to mention with the multiple sides of the good guys all going at it. It's just setting things up perfectly and was the best scene for me. So overall, I thought this was a great episode for all the reasons that I outlined earlier. There was some good character development. They only have time for snapshots of each character, but the reminding of who and where they all are and what they're all up to towards the end. Seeing the MSs go out there and launch in order just reminds us we need more clanch in terms of the clanch custom. And in the end, we got to see how many mobile suits, how many color variations. There's more surprises out there. We've got an Ezelkant clone or something, depending on if he's got his DNA in there, although he wasn't able to transfer his consciousness. Instead, that's gone into Zehart, perhaps explaining why he's gone full Char's counterattack Char. We've also got a mysterious yellow egg and Dean in the Chronos. Everything about this episode is exciting and just setting up the climax perfectly. In the end, though, it's going to come down to just a few small characters, so this may be the end of us actually seeing the whole armies face off. Anyway, it's just a question of deciding who those dance partners are going to be. Anyway, speculation would be appreciated down below. Let me know what you thought of the episode. Well, let me know what you thought of this review, of course. And stick around, as things are only going to heat up as we move on towards the end of September. Anyway, everybody, Robert184, thanks very much for watching. See you next time.